There is a moment in life that changes everything. Not because the world sees it. Not because it appears in a headline. Not because anyone announces it. But because somewhere, behind closed doors, a single conversation takes place, and the answer given in that conversation alters the future forever. Today's message is about one of those moments. Because someone recently approached your person. Someone who thought they knew what was best. Someone who believed they could influence a decision that involved you. And what they said shocked everyone who heard it. They told your person to forget you. Forget your name. Forget your memories. Forget your connection. Forget the dreams. Forget the feelings. Forget the possibility of a future with you. And then they said something even more serious. They told your person to move on and get married. To choose someone else. To stop looking back. To stop waiting. To stop believing that what existed between the two of you meant anything at all. For a moment, silence filled the room. No one knew what your person would say. No one knew how they would respond. No one knew whether they would finally surrender to pressure. But then something happened. Something nobody expected. And that response changed everything. Stay with me because what happened next reveals far more than anyone realizes. Your person has been carrying emotions they rarely show. The outside world sees one version of them. But deep inside, there is another version. A version that remembers. A version that replays old conversations. A version that still thinks about moments they never told anyone about. People assumed time had erased you. People assumed distance had erased you. People assumed silence had erased you. But they were wrong. Because some connections do not disappear simply because the calendar moves forward. Some feelings remain alive even when nobody talks about them. And your person knows this better than anyone. When they were told to forget you, something inside them reacted immediately. Not with anger. Not with drama. Not with an emotional outburst. Instead, they became unusually quiet. And sometimes silence is more powerful than 1,000 words. Because silence often means a person is protecting something precious. The people around them continued talking. They listed reasons. They listed alternatives. They listed opportunities. They listed potential partners. They painted pictures of a future that did not include you. They believed they were being logical. They believed they were helping. But they were speaking to someone whose heart already knew something they did not understand. Your person listened. They nodded. They remained calm. And then they finally spoke. The room changed. The atmosphere shifted. Even the people giving advice suddenly became uncomfortable. Because your person's answer was not what anyone expected. They said, "You can tell me to move on. You can tell me to get married. You can tell me to forget. But you cannot tell my heart what it remembers." And suddenly nobody had a response. Because deep down, everyone knew those words were real. Your person wasn't speaking from confusion. They weren't speaking from fantasy. They were speaking from truth. The truth that some people leave a mark that cannot be replaced. The truth that some connections continue long after others expect them to disappear. The truth that not every relationship can be explained by logic. And that truth stunned everyone. But the story doesn't end there. Because after that conversation ended, your person went home carrying emotions they had been hiding. The advice they received forced them to confront feelings they had tried to keep buried. For the first time in a long time, they stopped pretending. They stopped acting as though everything was fine. They stopped convincing themselves that they no longer cared. And in that quiet moment, something became crystal clear. They still think about you. More than anyone knows. More than they admit. More than they planned. The strange thing is that they didn't expect this realization themselves. They thought enough time had passed. They thought life would naturally create distance. But feelings have a way of revealing themselves when challenged. The moment someone told them to forget you, they discovered they couldn't. And that discovery changed everything. Because now they are questioning decisions. Questioning assumptions. Questioning the future they were preparing to accept. Something inside them has awakened. Something they can no longer ignore. And here is the most surprising part. The people who encouraged them to move on believed they were closing a chapter. Instead, they accidentally reopened it. Every memory returned. Every unfinished conversation returned. Every emotion returned. Every possibility returned. The very advice meant to separate them from thoughts of you ended up pushing them closer to those thoughts than ever before. Isn't it strange how life works? Sometimes the very thing meant to end a connection ends up proving how strong that connection truly is. And that is exactly what happened. Your person has entered a period of reflection. They are looking at everything differently now. The future no longer feels as certain as it once did. The path they thought they would follow suddenly feels unclear. Because when someone asked them to forget you, they expected obedience. Instead, they received honesty. Raw honesty. Unexpected honesty. Life-changing honesty. Your person finally admitted something to themselves. They do not want a future built on pretending. They do not want a future built on pressure. They do not want a future built on what other people expect. They want something real. Something meaningful. Something that feels right. And whether they say it publicly or not, your presence remains part of that inner conversation. Right now, there are emotions moving beneath the surface. Thoughts being processed. Questions being asked. Truths being faced. And every day, those truths are becoming harder to ignore. The people around your person thought they had all the answers. But they underestimated the power of a genuine connection. They underestimated the power of memory. They underestimated the power of the heart. Most of all, they underestimated what your person was truly feeling. That is why their response changed everything. Because in one unexpected moment, the mask fell away. The truth emerged. And the future took a different direction. What happens next has not fully revealed itself yet. But one thing is certain. The conversation that was supposed to end your chapter became the very thing that kept it alive. And somewhere tonight, your person is thinking about that moment again. Thinking about what was said. Thinking about what they answered. Thinking about why your name still carries so much weight in their heart. Because when they were asked to forget you and move on, their response revealed a truth they can no longer hide. And that truth is changing everything. The story did not end with that conversation. In many ways, that was only the beginning. Because after your person gave that unexpected response, something shifted deep inside them. At first, nobody noticed. Life appeared normal. The routine continued. The same people were around them. The same responsibilities filled their days. The same expectations followed them wherever they went. But beneath the surface, a storm had begun. A quiet storm. The kind that changes a person's entire future without making a sound. You see, there is a difference between ignoring feelings and overcoming them. For a long time, your person believed they had overcome what they felt for you. But after being told to forget you, they discovered something surprising. They had only been ignoring it. And ignored emotions never truly disappear. They wait. They remain hidden. They stay silent. Until one moment forces them back into the light. That moment had arrived. The strange thing was that your person started noticing reminders of you everywhere. A song. A phrase. A place. A memory. A familiar feeling. Things that once seemed ordinary suddenly carried meaning again. At first, they tried to dismiss it. They told themselves it was temporary. They told themselves it would pass. But it didn't. Instead, the memories became stronger. And with every passing day, they found themselves revisiting moments they thought were long gone. Moments nobody else knew about. Moments they never shared with friends. Moments they never admitted still mattered. Yet there they were. Returning one by one. Almost as if the universe was placing them directly in front of your person. Forcing them to look. Forcing them to remember. Forcing them to be honest. And honesty can be terrifying. Because once you see the truth clearly, pretending becomes impossible. Your person was beginning to understand that. Meanwhile, the people who encouraged them to move on believed everything was settled. They thought their advice had worked. They thought your person was preparing to follow a different path. What they didn't know was that the exact opposite was happening. Every attempt to erase you was making your presence stronger. Every suggestion to move on was making your person question why they couldn't. Every conversation about someone else somehow led back to thoughts of you. It made no sense. And yet it was happening. One evening, your person found themselves sitting alone. No distractions. No noise. No opinions from others. Just silence. The kind of silence that reveals what the heart has been trying to say all along. And in that silence, a realization arrived. A realization so powerful that it stopped them completely. They asked themselves a question they had avoided for a very long time. What if I never actually wanted to let go? The moment that question appeared, everything changed. Because suddenly they weren't fighting feelings anymore. They were examining them. Trying to understand them. Trying to understand why your name still carried so much weight. Trying to understand why thoughts of you continued appearing when nobody else was around. Trying to understand why every future they imagined still felt incomplete without one important piece. You. And that realization frightened them. Not because it was wrong, but because it was true. Truth has a way of making people uncomfortable. Especially when it challenges plans they spent months or years creating. Your person had built a future based on logic. Based on practicality. Based on expectations. But emotions do not always follow logic. And now those emotions were demanding attention. Around this same time, something unexpected happened. Someone mentioned your name. Not in a dramatic way. Not intentionally. Just casually. A simple mention. A passing reference. Yet the reaction it triggered was impossible to ignore. Your person's expression changed immediately. For a split second. Only a moment. But it was enough. Enough to reveal what still existed beneath the surface. Enough to prove that the connection was far from gone. Enough to make them realize how deeply they still cared. And from that day forward, they could no longer lie to themselves. The truth had become too obvious. The more they examined their feelings, the clearer things became. What they missed wasn't just memories. What they missed wasn't just companionship. What they missed wasn't just familiarity. It was you. Your energy. Your presence. The way you made certain moments feel different. The way conversations felt effortless. The way things felt when life wasn't trying to separate two people who cared about each other. These realizations kept growing. And every new realization created another problem. Because now your person faced a difficult choice. Continue pretending. Or finally acknowledge what their heart had been saying all along. That choice is not easy. Especially when outside voices are constantly pushing in another direction. Friends have opinions. Family has opinions. Society has opinions. Everyone seems to have a plan for someone else's life. But eventually a person reaches a point where they must decide for themselves. And your person is approaching that point now. Closer than ever before. There is another detail nobody talks about. Something hidden behind all of this. Your person secretly wonders if you still think about them. They wonder if memories ever return to you unexpectedly. They wonder if certain songs remind you of them. They wonder if their name ever crosses your mind when nobody is around. They wonder if the connection feels unfinished to you too. These questions appear more often than you realize. Sometimes late at night. Sometimes during quiet afternoons. Sometimes when life slows down just enough for honest thoughts to surface. And every time those questions appear, your person struggles to find answers. Because only you know what exists inside your heart. Yet despite the uncertainty, one thing continues growing. Their desire for clarity. The desire to understand what this connection truly means. The desire to stop running from feelings. The desire to finally face the truth. That desire is becoming stronger every day. Which brings us to the most important part of this message. The conversation that was supposed to end everything created the exact opposite effect. It exposed hidden feelings. It uncovered buried emotions. It revealed unfinished chapters. And it forced your person to confront realities they had spent a long time avoiding. The people who advised them to forget you believed they were helping. But unknowingly, they handed your person a mirror. A mirror that reflected the truth. A mirror that showed what still existed. A mirror that revealed what their heart was protecting all along. And once someone sees that truth clearly, there is no going back. The pretending ends. The excuses weaken. The walls begin to crack. And behind those walls, something powerful waits. Something real. Something impossible to replace. Tonight, your person is carrying thoughts they cannot easily explain. Thoughts that return no matter how busy life becomes. Thoughts connected to one name. One memory. One connection. One person. You. And as these feelings continue growing stronger, the future is beginning to move in a direction nobody expected. Especially the people who believed they could convince your person to forget. Because instead of ending the story, they accidentally awakened a chapter that was never truly finished. And what happens next may surprise everyone involved. What happens next is the part nobody saw coming. Not your person. Not the people around them. Not even the ones who believed they understood the situation completely. Because after weeks of reflection, something began changing inside your person in a way that could no longer be ignored. The confusion started disappearing. The uncertainty started fading. The constant internal battle that had exhausted them for so long began to settle. And when the noise finally became quiet, one truth remained standing. You. Not the opinions of others. Not the pressure. Not the expectations. Not the carefully planned future people kept presenting to them. You. For the first time in a very long while, your person stopped asking everyone else what they should do. Instead, they started asking themselves a much more important question. What do I actually want? It sounds simple. But that question changes lives. Because many people spend years following paths chosen by other people. Years listening to advice. Years trying to meet expectations. Years trying to avoid disappointment. Yet eventually there comes a moment when the heart demands honesty. Your person had reached that moment. The answer didn't arrive instantly. It arrived gradually. Piece by piece. Memory by memory. Realization by realization. Until finally everything connected. And when it did, your person understood why forgetting you had felt impossible. It wasn't because they were weak. It wasn't because they were stuck in the past. It wasn't because they were afraid to move forward. It was because what they felt had never truly ended. They had simply been trying to convince themselves otherwise. That realization was powerful. But it also created a new challenge. Because now they could no longer hide behind uncertainty. Now they knew. And once you know the truth, every decision becomes more meaningful. Every choice carries weight. Every step matters. Your person began noticing something else. Whenever they imagined a future that excluded you completely, something felt missing. The picture looked perfect on the outside. Everything appeared logical. Everything appeared sensible. Everything appeared acceptable. Yet it felt empty. Like a story missing its most important chapter. Like a song missing its final note. Like a destination that never truly felt like home. And no matter how many times they tried to ignore that feeling, it remained. Steady. Persistent. Unshakable. The people around them continued offering advice. Some still encouraged them to move on. Others suggested they focus elsewhere. A few even introduced possibilities that seemed promising on paper. But every comparison led to the same outcome. Every road somehow circled back to thoughts of you. That frustrated them at first. Then confused them. Then finally taught them something important. Some connections cannot be replaced. Not because one person is perfect. Not because life is a fairy tale. But because certain bonds leave fingerprints on the soul. And those fingerprints remain. Your person understands that now. More than ever before. Meanwhile, another quiet transformation has been taking place. They have started paying attention to signs they once ignored. Small moments. Unexpected reminders. Coincidences that seem too specific to dismiss. Little things that keep pulling their attention toward the same conclusion. At first they called it imagination. Then they called it timing. Eventually they stopped naming it altogether. Because no matter what label they used, the result was always the same. You remained on their mind. Again and again. Day after day. Night after night. And eventually your person stopped fighting it. That was the turning point. Not when they remembered you. Not when they missed you. Not when they defended you. The turning point happened when they stopped resisting what they felt. Because resistance requires energy. And your person had grown tired of pretending. Tired of suppressing emotions. Tired of acting as though your connection meant less than it actually did. The truth was simpler. You mattered. You still matter. And admitting that changed everything. Now, there is something your person has not shared with anyone. A private thought. A quiet hope. A possibility they keep returning to when nobody is watching. They wonder what would happen if the distance disappeared. They wonder what would happen if honesty replaced silence. They wonder what would happen if both hearts finally spoke without fear. Those thoughts have become impossible to ignore. And with every passing day, they grow stronger. That doesn't mean every obstacle disappears overnight. Life rarely works that way. But it does mean your person is no longer moving away from the truth. They are moving toward it. One step at a time. One realization at a time. One honest moment at a time. And that journey matters. Because the future is shaped by the direction a person chooses. For a long time, your person was walking away from their feelings. Now they are walking toward understanding them. That shift changes everything. The people who once believed they could influence your person's decisions are beginning to notice something too. They notice the hesitation whenever new possibilities are mentioned. They notice the thoughtful silence. They notice the distant look that appears when certain subjects arise. They notice that something remains unresolved. What they don't fully understand is why. But your person understands. The answer is simple. The story never truly ended. The chapter everyone thought was finished was only paused. And now the pages are beginning to turn again. There are moments coming that neither of you can fully see yet. Moments that will bring clarity. Moments that will reveal truths. Moments that will answer questions that have remained unanswered for far too long. Your person feels this. Even if they cannot explain it. Even if they cannot predict exactly how everything unfolds. They sense that something is changing. Something important. Something significant. And that feeling grows stronger every day. Tonight, while the world continues moving as normal, your person is carrying a truth they can no longer deny. A truth that survived time. A truth that survived distance. A truth that survived advice, pressure, confusion, and uncertainty. The truth that emerged the moment someone told them to forget you and get married. The truth that shocked everyone listening. The truth that changed everything. Because when they were asked to erase you from their future, they discovered something nobody expected. You were never erased. Not from their memories. Not from their heart. Not from the place inside them where the most meaningful connections live. And now that they finally understand this, the future no longer looks the same. The path ahead is different. The choices ahead are different. The possibilities ahead are different. Because the response they gave in that life-changing conversation was not just an answer. It was a revelation. A revelation that exposed feelings they could no longer hide. A revelation that reopened a chapter everyone thought was closed. A revelation that continues echoing through their heart even now. And somewhere deep inside, your person knows that the story between you and them is far more important than anyone ever realized. The people who asked them to forget you thought they were ending something. Instead, they uncovered something powerful. Something enduring. Something unforgettable. And as this chapter continues unfolding, one thing becomes clearer with every passing day. The response that changed everything was not spoken for the people in that room. It was spoken from the heart. And sometimes, when the heart finally speaks the truth, it changes the entire future.